Sang-yu is a lonely, poor scriptwriter with no job, no friends, and his parents have passed away. His biggest problem is that he hasn't been able to sleep for the past 6 months because every time he falls asleep, a demon appears in his dreams and turns him into violent nightmares. Tonight, Sang-yu dreams that he's on the metro when the demon shows up, grabs him by the hair, and smashes his head through a hole in the floor, killing him. As soon as he dies in the dream, he wakes up and tries to write something down. But just then his landlord knocks on the door, saying he brought food. Sang-yu quickly escapes through the window because he doesn't have money to pay the rent. While walking on the streets, he remembers all the experts he consulted about his dreams. Psychologists, doctors, scientists, religious believers, and others. They all had different theories, but none of them could offer any real help. He stops at a food stall and orders a crepe without eggs because that's all he can afford. However, the man at the stall adds an egg for free. While waiting for his food, Sang-yu notices a cafe across the street where Hua Air works. She's his crush. He saw her years ago hanging out with friends at a bar when she was singing with her band. Her voice was so beautiful that he hasn't been able to stop thinking about her since. When his crepe is ready, Sang-yu sits down to eat it, but suddenly his manager, Sang-gu, shows up. Sang-yu starts running, but drops his crepe on the way. He's too weak, and Sang-gu catches him. He takes him to a restaurant, eats in front of him, and scolds him for not respecting his contract and missing the deadline for his script. Sang-yu tries to explain that his insomnia is making it hard for him to concentrate, but Sang-gu doesn't care and demands the script in 10 days. Later, Sang-yu returns to his apartment, but finds it locked, and all his belongings are thrown into the hallway. His landlord has finally evicted him. He goes to a cafe to try and write something, but he's so hungry that he can't think, and ends up falling asleep. Once again, the demon comes after him, wraps chains around his neck, and starts slamming his head on the table. Just like before, Sang-yu wakes up in the morning as soon as he dies in the dream, only to find that his laptop has been stolen. Now that he's lost his only tool for work and can't tell the difference between reality and nightmares, Sang-yu sends a message to Sang-gu, saying he's going to kill himself and meet his parents. He chooses the rooftop of a building across from Hua Air's cafe and stands at the edge, ready to jump. But just then, the crepe seller stops him by offering free food again. The man sits with him on the rooftop, and while Sang-yu eats, he shares different people's thoughts about death and dreams, finally reaching a simple conclusion. When Sang-yu has these nightmares, he should say to himself, "I'm dreaming," so he can wake up faster. Sang-yu sits on the rooftop, watching Hua Air until night falls. Then, he sells his phone to gather some money for food. He goes to a convenience store, thinking about stealing something, but changes his mind when he feels like someone is watching him. After buying food, he eats it outside the store, where Hua Air suddenly appears and starts talking to him, showing concern for his well-being. It seems too good to be true, and soon, Sang-yu realizes that Hua Air is actually the demon in disguise. The demon shoves him against the glass, and the store clerk thinks Sang-yu is having a panic attack. The demon lifts Sang-yu and stabs him with a sword, throwing him through the window. As Sang-yu grabs hold of the sword, he remembers the crepe seller's advice and tells himself that he's dreaming. This makes him wake up in the middle of the nightmare. But in reality, he's still flying through broken glass. While he hasn't been stabbed, he mysteriously finds the demon's sword in his hands. He runs away before the ambulance, which the store clerk called, arrives. He spends the entire night in the park, examining the sword and making sure he's not dreaming again. As morning comes, Sang-yu heads to a flea market to sell the sword. Seeing how interested the buyers are, he realizes it's something valuable. So, he goes to a pawn shop where he finds out the true price of the sword, 20,000. Sang-yu wastes no time and immediately starts spending the money. He buys a new computer, dines at fancy restaurants, and checks into a luxury hotel. When night falls, he takes some sleeping pills and waits for his usual dream. This time, the dream also takes place in a hotel, so he walks out his room and wanders down the hallway, grabbing a vase and saying, "I'm dreaming," but nothing happens. He decides to explore a bit more, and then the demon appears with a giant golden axe, chasing him. The demon hits him with the weapon, throwing him around and causing serious injuries. But after a few blows, Sang-yu grabs the axe and shouts, "I'm dreaming." Once again, he wakes up holding the weapon, without a single wound on his body. He sells the axe at the same pawn shop and immediately starts spending the money again. Sang-yu buys nice clothes, a new car, and spends the evening drinking with some women at a bar. However, when he returns to his hotel room, he doesn't let them in. He just gives them taxi money and goes to sleep. Tonight, he tries a new method. Before sleeping, he looks at pictures of an important museum in a book. This plan works, and the dream takes place in the museum he saw in the photos. Sang-yu looks around, admiring the ancient artifacts, waiting for the demon to show up. This time, the demon arrives with a gun, which ruins Sang-yu's plan. He starts running, trying to dodge the bullets, but eventually, the demon catches him and kills him. Sang-yu wakes up in his hotel room, but since he didn't manage to grab anything from the dream, he feels the job isn't done. So, he swallows another sleeping pill to go back into the dream. Back in the dream, Sang-yu starts running again, dodging some bullets, and makes an incredible jump. He grabs 2 antique objects and says, "I'm dreaming." Then he wakes up. This time, Sang-yu takes the treasures to professional antique dealers who trade with wealthy collectors. He gets $2 million for them, and they ask him some questions about how he got them, but he manages to dodge their curiosity. As he leaves the shop, an angry Sang-gu runs into him. He thought Sang-yu was dead. Sang-yu invites him to a fancy restaurant for a meal and returns the money for the script, explaining that he no longer writes. The next day, Sang-yu finally walks into Hua-er's cafe. After ordering a latte, he asks her if she remembers him, but she doesn't. He also asks why she's selling the cafe, and she explains that there aren't enough customers, and the business is only piling up debt. Later that night, while having dinner with Sang-gu, Sang-yu drinks a bit too much. Sang-gu is eager to know the secret behind Sang-yu's sudden success. He helps Sang-yu back to his hotel room and puts him to bed. Pretending to leave, Sang-gu sneaks back in to look at Sang-yu's wallet and checkbook. He's shocked when Sang-yu wakes up, now wearing golden chains. Realizing the secret, Sang-gu begs him to let him join in on this new business. Sang-yu thinks it over. The next day, Sang-yu buys Hua-er's cafe and tells her that she can still run it. They can split the profits, but he'll cover any losses. Grateful, she invites him to dinner, where they discuss their new business partnership. Hua-er suspects that Sang-yu wants something more than just money out of the deal. From then on, Sang-yu regularly goes on adventurous journeys in his dreams, while Sang-gu watches over his sleeping body. In some of his dreams, like robbing a bank, Sang-yu shows just how much control he's learned over his powers. He starts fighting the demon, and can now move objects with his mind. He even begins bringing bigger things back from his dreams, like a red car. After some time, Hua-er's cafe is packed with customers because Sang-yu sent Sang-gu out to hand out money and bring people in. He also leaves a bag of cash for the crepe seller as a thank you for giving him free food. After closing up the shop, Sang-yu takes a walk with Hua-er, who guesses he's a scriptwriter based on just a few words. Sang-yu starts dropping her home after work every day, and one night, he lets her drive the red car he brought from his dream, telling her it's hers. Amazed by her luck, Hua-er assumes that Sang-yu is a very famous scriptwriter. As she drives at night, Sang-yu remembers the first time he saw her after one of her shows. He saw her crying after a fight with her ex, and later he spotted her several times at the movie theater. Sang-yu decides to take her to see a movie in the present, and Hua-er agrees. But this also makes her wonder when they'll be able to watch a movie he's written. To avoid getting caught in his lie, Sang-yu actually writes a script and gives it to Sang-gu to read while he sleeps. Since Hua-er is constantly on his mind, Sang-yu dreams of himself in bed with several versions of her, forcing him to wake up quickly. He then sees Sang-gu crying over the quality of the script. Their plan starts to unfold. They sell the script to a movie company, offering to fund the project with their own money, hire the biggest stars, and turn it into a huge success. To celebrate, they organize a special dinner event, and Sang-yu takes Hua-er with him. At the event, there's a special presentation about his career, completely fabricated. It claims that Sang-yu wrote several successful films, but didn't take credit for them because he wanted to travel the world. A few days later, in a dream, Sang-yu discovers something strange. A monk's body sitting in meditation. When he tries to take the monk's belt, his hand disintegrates. But he doesn't give up, and once his hand reappears, he tries again. As he removes the belt, the monk tries to touch his chest with 2 smoky fingers, but Sang-yu doesn't seem too worried. The usual demon doesn't appear, and both the treasure and the monk vanish. One night, Sang-yu takes Hua-er to the rooftop, where he almost took his life, and shows her a fireworks display he arranged just for her. When she wonders if he'll disappear as quickly as he appeared in her life, he promises her that he'll never leave her. Later, they go back to her apartment. While she freshens up in the bathroom, Sang-yu practices confessing his feelings. However, he's suddenly forced to leave when he feels a sharp pain in his chest. Looking in the mirror, he sees two smoky, black streaks on his skin. When he gets back to his place, he ignores Sanji's party, where many women are gathered, and heads straight to bed. Sang-gu is ready to collect the night's treasure, but Sang-yu tells him it's not necessary. This time, he's sleeping alone. In the dream, Sang-yu finds himself in a tall, empty building with a mysterious figure waiting on the balcony. As he approaches, he realizes it's a decaying version of his old self. When he wakes up, he finds a new mark on his shoulder. As the hours pass, more marks appear, exactly where the demon had hurt him in past dreams. The next morning, he goes to meet the crepe seller for more advice. But just as he's about to reach his destination, a van pulls up and Sang-yu is kidnapped. When they finally remove the bag from Sang-yu's head, he found himself in an abandoned building surrounded by a gang of criminals led by Kyang-gu. Sang-yu tells them that he will give them whatever they want. After agreeing on 10 million, he calls Sang-gu and asks him to bring the money. When Sang-gu arrives, Kyang-ji's men take the money and capture him too, using him as leverage in their negotiations. With no other option, Sang-yu takes the entire group to his apartment, where he shows them all his hidden antique items in a secret room. As Kyang-gu tries to force him to admit how he acquired all these rare items, someone enters the building to check on them. It's Hua-er. The receptionist announces her arrival over the intercom, so Sang-yu leaves her there to ensure her safety. Seeing Hua-er distressed, the receptionist informs her that Sang-yu's door is still open and lets her upstairs. As she exits the elevator, a thug grabs her and takes her to the same place where they are keeping Sang-yu. Kyang-gu starts taunting her, revealing that Sang-yu lied to him and that one of his men thought they were just coming for some money. In his rage, Kyang-gu dons ornate gold gloves and begins to beat her, while Sang-gu starts waking up secretly. When Kyang-gu turns his attention to Hua-er, she kicks him in self-defense, giving Sang-gu the chance to grab a vase and hit the thug holding him. Sang-yu manages to cut the thug holding him and escapes, though he is injured by a knife in the process. The three of them flee, but Kyang-gu shoots the man he had beaten earlier. Due to Sang-yu's injuries, they struggle to get far. They are caught on the stairs, and one of the thugs stabs Sang-yu again. Sang-gu sacrifices himself, staying behind to distract the thugs so that Sang-yu and Hua-er can escape. However, a regular person is no match for two trained individuals, so Sang-gu is beaten to death. A thug captures Sang-yu and Hua-er, drags them upstairs, and starts attacking them, disregarding the fact that Sang-yu has stabbed him in the back. Both of them lose consciousness, and Sang-yu finds himself suddenly in mysterious ruins covered in black substance, which quickly disappears as he begins to move. After looking around, he touches a glowing archway and starts experiencing flashbacks of his life over the past few months, including both real life and dreams. Even the version of him taken away by an ambulance that night outside the convenience store. As it all ends, he moves towards an area with a massive crystal wall and starts hitting it repeatedly, shouting, "I'm dreaming," until he loses consciousness from blood loss. Suddenly, his body begins to change, and Sang-yu transforms into the demon. With a machete in hand, he starts attacking the crystal wall, imagining himself as a demon in various scenarios, but with a twist. In these versions, he kills his landlord and Sang-gu because they were not kind to him. When the wall finally breaks, the demon Sang-yu enters the living room, where Sang-yu's body is also awake. The demon mercilessly kills all the thugs, even revealing his strange gun when necessary. Then he turns towards Sang-yu, ready to kill him, but Sang-yu mutters, "I'm dreaming," and all the antique items he had brought from his dreams start disappearing, both from his apartment and the rich collector's collections. Sang-yu loses consciousness again, and when he wakes up, he finds himself back outside the convenience store that night. Hua-er finds him and recognizes him from the concert, so she takes pity on him, brings him to her home, and feeds him some real food. While eating noodle soup, Hua-er tells Sang-yu that she read a story of his in a magazine and thought it was very good. She says that he only needs a bit of luck to be successful. Until then, she offers him a job at her cafe, which makes Sang-yu emotional and he starts to cry. Meanwhile, It is revealed that Hua-er always knew he was watching her. Some time later, while they are working at the cafe, Hua-er gives Sang-yu a new laptop so he can write on it. Afterwards, Sang-yu meets Sang-gu at a restaurant and tries to return his money, as he no longer wants to be bound to writing scripts and just wants to write what he desires. Sang-gu not only refuses to take the money, but also gives him more money because he has sold one of Sang-yu's old scripts. Overjoyed, Sang-yu decides to pay for their bill himself. Several days later, satisfied with his life, Sang-yu goes to order food from the crate man. The man returns his money and shows him a scar on his stomach, revealing that he had the same power and learned that a simple life is much better. As Sang-yu listens to his story, the ruins from his last dream appear behind him, revealing that the new demon who killed the thugs has been following him since reappearing from the convenience store.